I think whether you've been married for 30 days or for 30 years, every couple knows when an argument starts to turn for the worst. It's like the milk you left out all night. You kind of know, like it's turned. It stinks. But you get that
chunky.
feeling like it gets a little chunkier, a little sour lemon milk. No, but every couple knows when you're talking and you're realizing, oh, this is not just a conversation. We're not just disagreeing now. Now it's turning into an argument because I feel my own heels digging in.
Because you are wrong. I am right.
I can see that my wife is getting defensive. She's being really touchy and emotional.
Touchy like you like, or
reactive. Maybe nuclear. I don't know. Nuclear reactive. I don't know. Anyway, it's turning. It's turning right
it's
now.
happening right now. So in real time, we will talk to you on the other side. We will give you 5 ways to de-escalate a fight.
All right. See you there. Well, the train almost got away from me there. A little runaway train action.
Almost.
Goodness.
All right.
Yeah, so de-escalation, I think, is a skill that if you can learn it, I think it can bear dividends, pay dividends long into the future of your relationship. If you can just learn to recognize when things are going sideways and remind your spouse that we don't have to go down this road, that we can actually...
Well, yeah, there's other things that we can... So replacing those, like you said, I think just recognizing what's happening and trusting that we don't have to go down that path because we have other reasons. We have ways to cope and deal in a healthy way to kind of turn away from that consistent fight or whatever we're facing. But yeah, de-escalation, I feel like it's such a ministry tool because you can feel yourself getting heated. You can feel yourself ready to fight. And then all of a sudden it's like if something's said or a deep breath is taken, the Holy Spirit can just come in and just decompress everybody and say, okay, this is what's really happening. Let's do one of these 5 things that we're going to share with you in just a moment. But
yeah. So if you're watching this, go ahead and leave a comment if you have a question about it. If you're listening to this, leave a rating and review. Please do take the time to do that. We'll remind you at the end. Hope you reminded me to remind them at the end because
okay, not good at reminders.
It's super helpful. It helps people realize that this is valuable content, and that's why we're doing it. We want as many people as possible to hear the good news of the gospel bear its full weight on the various aspects of married life. So if you're not familiar with who we are, my name is Ryan. This is my lovely wife, Selena, and we've been doing this for a number of years. This is our entire livelihood, and it's our lives in one way or another is encouraging couples, encouraging families. So if you want to be a part of that, like I said earlier, leave a rating and review, leave a comment, hit a like button, smash subscribe, or you can go deeper into the community by going to fiercemarriage.com/partner. And that's actually if you want to lock arms with us. We ask that you pray about that. And if the Lord leads, that you would step into that fiercemarriage.com/partner. Thank you so much for all of our supporters, because in these troublesome times when we don't honestly know if the other shoe is gonna drop in terms of like our distribution, in terms of social media, letting us talk about this message. But we do know that our lovely patrons, our supporters, will be there a month in and month out. So thank you if you're a supporter. It means a lot.
So a good friend of ours, and we don't know if he came up with this thought. I'm sure it's heard many times or been said many times, but our friend Brian over with Family Life,
Weekend to Remember.
Yes,
yeah.
He was one of the trainers there. He said something that will stick with us for quite a while, probably forever. But he said there's a difference. 3 seconds is the difference between a response and a reaction.
3 seconds is the difference between responding and reacting. So what did he mean by that? I think reaction would be the negative side, right? Like I just feel an offense or I feel something coming on and I'm just all of a sudden going to knee-jerk react to you.
Yes.
Whereas if we take just a moment and just say 1, 2, 3, I'm going to think, you're not just waiting for 3 seconds, but you're thinking and processing for 3 seconons. Maybe you're waiting for 3. He said, I got to wait 3 seconds.
I'm just waiting 3 seconds. I'm still going to explode. But. And
so that's kind of what we're going to take that theme and kind of unpack it, blow it out into bigger ideas that we can use and weaponize in this fight against an escalating argument, right? So let's just dive right into it. The first one, okay? The first step, the first way to de-escalate a fight. Now, before I get into that, actually, when we say fight, people think various things. So I want to be clear.
Sure.
What we mean is a heated argument. Okay, we're not talking about any sort of physical altercations. We're not talking. Maybe Selena
would lose.
Selena,
Clearly,
she's at times, has
Shouldn't joke
been known to
about
throw a
that.
sandwich or two.
Shouldn't joke about that.
Shouldn't joke about that. But we're talking about just an argument that is for your marriage a 10, right? Meaning that you're starting to take low blows. You're starting to
Your voices are raising. Your heart is starting to beat rather hard, and you're feeling hot and not in a good way. You're feeling like you're gonna lose your marbles.
because every couple is different. Like it was so funny. I was in a car with a good friend. We were coming back from a men's retreat, and we had ended up staying later than we thought we were going to stay. And his wife was fuming, apparently. Because he called apparently because I'm in the car and he calls and she's on speaker through the Bluetooth or whatever, and she's like, okay, well, when are you gonna be home? And he's like, well, we're actually just leaving such and such a town, we're about 2 hours out. She's like, oh really? And like his face went ghost white, and they carried on the conversation. I was like, hey, that wasn't so bad, man. He's like, are you kidding? She's furious with me. Like that was a 10 for them. And I know they probably had words after he got home. But the point is we have to be clear about what we're talking about, argument-wise, fight-wise.
Yes.
It's whatever that is, like an 8, 9, or 10 level for your relationship.
Right.
Okay, so that was enough burying the lead there.
Well, I think one thing too, something to be, I guess, just highlighted in this conversation is that there is a difference between ignoring a conversation, ignoring or appeasing our spouse to just kind of get through it and be done with it. Whereas de-escalating, we see it as like a ministry tool as far as, okay, we're not just going to ignore the problem. We're not just going to, I'm just not going to like appease you in whatever way. Just, okay, like give him what he wants. Yeah, you're right. Whatever. Like, fine.
That's so good.
That's not actual
That's very good. Yeah.
de-escalation, or it doesn't even put you on the path to actual reconciliation, which I think is the end game, right? For de-escalating any sort of fight or argument is to actually go and head in the direction of reconciliation.
Yeah, and you're engaging with the problem. You're engaging with one another so that you can get down to the root of it. Because a lot of times there's going to be some sin there, like some lack of patience.
A lot of times. Every time there will be sin there.
Okay, that's true.
Every time there is sin and brokenness that is just
or there
rearing
could
its
be
ugly head.
a life circumstance that could be unfolding, and it's causing heightened tension.
Yes.
But maybe that life circumstance is calling into question your ability to trust the Lord in that and to go to one another as helpmates in that. So I love that you just said that. So it's a way of engaging more deeply with one another and with the issue, the true issues at hand, not just sweeping it under the rug, so to speak. Okay.
All right. 5 ways to de-escalate a fight. Here they come. Name it.
Name it.
Name it. What does that mean?
So recognizing. So you recognize in the moment, okay, things are actually escalating. Yeah. We mentioned and kind of joked up front that every couple knows that feeling, but does every couple know to really name that and to say, this is actually what is happening in that moment? Yeah. Right. And so you have to be able to see it coming and then go through the process of naming it. Now it's not just like, hey, we're fighting, peace, I'm out, right? Yeah. Or I don't like this, I can tell that you're getting emotional, therefore I'm going to now dismiss you.
This is delicate to deal with.
It's And so here's some really, I think, help we realize this is delicate, because you could say, okay, this is escalating. I can see that you're losing your cool. Right? That just makes the other person more mad.
Yes. Or
it's just another way of arguing.
Yeah, if one of us is saying, I'm just saying myself because I can only represent myself. But yeah, no, if I'm saying, you're really frustrating me right now and you're making me really angry, like I'm naming all the things, but clearly it's just going to flame. It's going to inflame you. It's going to make.
It's not going to diffuse the bomb. It's going to set it off.
Yes.
And so by naming it, here's a really careful process, because we wanted to be clear here. The first piece is set the baseline. So if you know it's happening, you know that you need to call it out for what it is. The baseline is this: hey, I love you.
It's always a good way to start.
I love you. I'm for us. I am for you. I want to have a healthy conversation with you. I want this to be better than it is. So that's the first one. You set the baseline. The second one is you articulate your concern. Okay, so I love you. I'm for us. The concern is this. Right now, I feel like this argument's not going in a positive direction. Yeah. I feel like it's getting worse. That's the second one. The third one is state your motive. Okay, sometimes you just got to say it outright. I don't want this to escalate, because when it escalates, it hurts us both. Mm-hmm. We say things we regret.
That's hard to say because I feel like my emotions are like, yeah, let's fight. Let's escalate this thing. Come on.
Or I don't want this to go further because we will sin in our anger.
Yes.
Again, you could say all these things in really sanctimonious, patronizing ways. Like, I don't want to sin. Like, we shouldn't be sinning.
Don't
You're
make
going to
me
sin.
Yeah.
But genuinely, we have to actually want this,
Yes.
and then it can be your motive. If it's not your motive, don't sin. Like, work on the motive.
Yes.
And the final one is try to get buy-in from your spouse. Okay. In other words, do you agree? Like, can you?
Sometimes I would just be like, "Don't ask me those questions right now." I'm so
you can see that
angry.
we're very skilled at de-escalating.
Do you agree? No, I don't want to agree with you on anything right now.
So anyway, but that's the process of naming it. And so part of naming it too is not just naming the situation, but naming your emotions for
Which,
yourself.
again, is a delicate thing to do because you can I can't control him, but I can't blame him for how I feel either, right? I mean, maybe there are things that you've said that hurt my feelings. I'm feeling hurt right now. I'm feeling angry. I don't think that I'm thinking clearly. I think it's a good time for us to recognize that this is spiraling out of control. We need to stop.
And I guess the underlying truth here is that many of us, we feel and we act on our feelings without really knowing what it is that is driving us, really being able to articulate what those feelings are. And so here's the challenge. I think the greatest challenge in the naming piece is being able to put a label on how you are actually feeling. And don't just go to the default, I'm angry. Yeah. Right? Because you're not just angry. You're feeling sad, or you're feeling afraid, or you're feeling attacked, or you're feeling insecure. Like, do that hard work of articulating exactly what you're feeling. Yeah.
And in a way that's, not more inflammatory, right? And not more blaming, but just saying this situation right now, this is what I'm feeling inside of it. I think I say this a lot. I know it's not real, and I know it's not accurate in what I'm feeling, but this is what I'm feeling right now, and this is what I'm wrestling with and I'm struggling with. We need to go to number 2, and we need to breathe deeply. So first of all, like you said, name it, recognize that things are escalating, start naming, going through your feelings, setting that baseline of I love you, I'm for you, I'm for us. But I don't want this to escalate. So let's stop, take a few deep breaths, wait.
Which is the second one, like you said.
Yes.
So breathe deeply and remember. And we can, I think, accelerate through the numbers 2 through 5 simply because I feel like naming it is like 90% of the battle most of the time. If you can get through that first piece, you'll notice that you've already begun. Yeah. It's already almost de-escalated at that point.
Hopefully, yes.
But this is, again, continuing on the process. So, like you said, wait, take a breath, speak. James 1:9, know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger.
James 1:19.
Excuse me, 1:19. James 1:19. So you had a quote here, Kevin Malone. Why use more word when few word do trick? I guarantee if you bust that line out and your Office fans and you bust that line out in a fight,
it'll de-escalate real quickly.
It'll de-escalate things.
I mean,
really
depending.
quickly.
I would say 80% of the time. Sometimes there's times where he pulls out a quote and I'm like, don't you dare.
Don't you dare.
Not right now.
Which in itself is a quote.
It's a quote.
How dare you?
Words are like toothpaste, friends.
We had a fight. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's been long enough. I can talk about it again.
Uh-oh.
We were arguing and I was making dinner one night and I was trying to articulate myself and you were, and I was really mad. I was really upset because you had, I thought at the moment, I felt like you weren't respecting me in a healthy way. And the way it came out is I was like flipping, I don't know, a steak or something. And I was like, I just don't get no respect.
It just like kind of came out of you.
Which, if you're an Office fan,
that's just like, I feel like I don't get no respect around here or something. I
said it like Michael Scott when he was quoting Rodney Dangerfield. And anyway, so it really, I laughed begrudgingly.
You did. We've had many of those moments of, I'm not going to laugh right now.
Yeah. So,
but sometimes laughing is a good way of de-escalating. That should have been number 6.
It's part of breathing deeply, I feel like, and remembering your union. Like that helps you remember immediately. Like, we have a lot of context. I do love my wife. I do think she's awesome. I do laugh with her.
We are on the same team.
I
hate when he says that though when we're fighting. I'm on your side. We're on the same team. I'm like, no, clearly we are not on the same team. It can be very irritating, just to be honest.
Clearly, your perception is that we are not on the same team, which is why I need to say
I know.
We are on the same team. Okay. We use this analogy with our kids all the time, that words are like toothpaste. Like once you get those words out, there's no taking them back. And so being slow to speak and slow to become angry, slow to anger, is I think one of the wisest things that we can do in marriage and in any relationship for that matter.
In life.
And in life, yeah. Apparently there's some science to this. So there's a family therapist named Deb Hirschhorn. She said this: when we slow down and breathe slowly, our autonomic nervous system, it slows down and it turns off the stress hormone cortisol in our brain, and it's simply by the process of deep breathing. So in other words, that the autonomic nervous system it's like the things that happen without us knowing they're happening, like breathing, your heartbeat.
I wonder if that's
immune response, things like that.
I think that's so funny, because when I get super stressed or angry, I feel like my breaths just naturally get deeper. It's like your body's just like, I'm gonna take care of this one for you. But deep breathing, I think there's also like breathing techniques and things that I've heard.
Yeah, and you gotta be careful and not to delve into the new age, but I think there is a biblical case to be made for like meditating on the things of God by understanding that you're a physiological person. You're not just a mind, you're not just a soul, but you have a body. And by actually breathing intentionally, you can slow the mind down and you can calm the soul.
Well, and I think within those 3 seconds of responding versus reacting, we can be breathing deeply, right? And we can be thinking and praying and asking the Holy Spirit, petitioning, like, help me, God, help me in this situation.
So the second point was breathe deep and remember. And so what are we remembering? This is really, really quickly. We remember who, okay? Who is this person you're actually up against right now? Oh, it's my wife. I love her. She's a God-given blessing.
She's made in God's image. He's made in God's image for me to care for and to respect and for God's glory.
Yeah. Remember what? Your marriage is good. It's good. It's worth fighting for. It's worth being emotionally mature and taking a step back. And why are you fighting? Well, you're fighting. The big perspective is you're arguing, you're fighting because you're both sinful people. And sin breaks things, including your ability to see that we are on the same team, Selena.
It's not my sin, it's your sin.
It breaks our perspective. It breaks our ability to see things clearly.
Yeah, for sure.
And a few episodes back, we talked about anger. Remember, hot anger? It burns hot. It obscures our vision.
It's very hot and angry. I don't remember that.
We respond in ways that aren't healthy, and we can't see it. It blinds us. And so remember that's always happening. That's why we stop, we slow down, we remember. Okay, number 3. What's number 3?
Assume less, try to listen more. This is really hard. So I feel like you'd go through these 5 things just really quickly of like, okay, pause, breathe, name it. Okay, breathing again. What is actually happening? Remembering what, okay, and then assuming less. So when your emotions are running high and he's saying, we're not seeing things clearly, I think we assume without assuming that we're assuming. Does that make sense? Like we just think and we assume that, well, he's saying these words and he's saying them in this way. So like the only way I can calculate a response is based on what I'm perceiving. But 9 times out of 10, I mean, if you talk to any couple, the communication issues are around what's being said. So there's a lack of a shared meaning. Like we're not actually saying the same things, even though we might be using the same words in the same context. There's a deeper, I think, understanding that we're not connected with. So as far as like we're not sharing that same meaning.
Yeah. So we can question yourself. Yeah. Which, if we're not questioning ourselves, that says a lot about what we're assuming about ourselves, and that we're smarter than we actually think. Like we think we're smarter than we actually are, or that we understand the situation better than we actually do.
Asking questions is a great way to assume less. So
is it possible that you're not seeing things the way you think you are?
Question everything.
You're not seeing reality, in other words. Yeah. Question everything.
Well, when you're fighting, sometimes I think
question yourself
are good.
And everything. I think don't question the things of God.
No,
but
question your spouse too, right?
That's why I laughed though. Yeah, question your spouse. How dare you? That's my first question for you.
I have a question.
Okay, so number 4, if I can get 4 fingers up, take a break. So they all kind of, you'll see they interweave with one another, but taking a break, in other words, it's okay to take a break with the clear intent to return and resolve.
Right.
You can always back away from something knowing that, again, I see this as escalating. The best, healthiest, most loving thing I can do is not engage with this in this way.
Right, because
I want to engage with it.
Yeah, but if we engage in the way that our flesh is wanting us to, 9 times out of 10, we're going to end up in sin, right? So Ephesians 4:26 talks about, in your anger, do not sin, do not let the sun go down.
On your anger, yeah.
On your anger, but forgive one another.
And what he's talking about in Ephesians is a brooding sort of anger, like this vengefulness that would be that category of anger, not just, oh, we've had a fight, and if we don't say we're sorry and have an immediate resolution, then we're somehow sinning. Right. I don't think that's always possible. Sometimes you need to get rest. Sometimes, and if you go to bed thinking, oh, I'm going to get them in the morning, and I'm just going to, and what that's talking about is doing what we're saying not to do, and that's where you're sweeping it under the rug,
right.
and not ever dealing with it, so that it becomes this festering wound, and this gap that is widened over time. So take a break. We have a saying in the Frederick household, and this is why when we talked about leaving and saying, I want to engage, but I don't want to engage with it in this way.
Yeah.
Well, the saying that we have in the Frederick household is that play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? We can't be surprised when we always are walking in the flesh, or we tend to walk in the flesh in these hard moments. That's difficult. And if we take the easy route, which is the fleshly route, we can't be surprised if we don't see growth in our marriage, or our intimacy suffers, and we're no longer connected with one another like we want to be, and the various other aspects of our marriage begin to suffer because we've played stupid games or winning stupid prizes. Right. I'm not trying to make light of it, but just be able to see that cause and reaction of walking in the flesh and reaping the rewards of the flesh, which, what does the Bible say? That's death.
Yeah.
And the rewards of walking in the Spirit are life. So choose walking in the Spirit, choose life. All right, the final one and the fifth one is take responsibility.
Yeah.
Own your own part in it.
Right.
And again, a lot of these are impossible without humility, without being able to look at yourself objectively and say, I actually do sound like I'm attacking my wife. I didn't articulate myself well. I need to back out of that. Right. I need to admit that, own that, so then we can actually move forward. Otherwise, you're going to continue down this path of just digging a deeper and deeper hole.
Well, I think questions are good, again, in this scenario, because like if I'm just heated in the middle of an argument, the humility aspect, the grace, if I am remembering who I am, like Christ has forgiven me, Christ has saved me, he died humbly, the worst death for me. Yes, I think of those things in argument, believe it or not. I'm like, okay, we always talk about this. We always talk about the gospel in the middle of our arguments. So, or on Fierce Marriage, and we're in the middle of an argument. Okay, God saved me. He forgave me. I need to forgive him. I know that's what I need to do, but I don't know how to get there quite yet, right? And so how do I forgive him? I can go through the motions of forgiving him, or I can, first of all, right, de-escalate this fight. And part of that, again, like you said, is owning my responsibility in either saying, hey, we need to take a time out and I'm recognizing this, or engaging in the fight with a fleshly sort of reaction. Yeah. And so we definitely have to understand that there's God's given us two ways to respond. We can respond in the flesh, or we can respond in the Spirit. And not responding, not taking responsibility and always shifting the blame is it's a sign of lack of maturity.
Yeah, I was going to say it was weak.
Same thing.
But yeah, yours is more tactful. At part of this is, and we always talk about not doing this in our own marriage, kind of some of the communication ground rules, and we've talked about those in our gospel-centered marriage courses. But we have to ditch the tit for tat mentality. And one example that I thought of was if, sometimes, early on in our marriage, I was really sensitive to how you were chewing your food. And I'd be like, kind of think you're chewing a little loud right now.
We were dating, I think.
I kind of think you're chewing a little loud right now. I'd be like, yeah, well, you smell like a hippo or something like that. It's a tit for tat, right? Like I feel attacked, and I'm going to act. The best defense is a good offense, so I'm going to go on the offensive here.
He's working on it.
That's not an actual thing that you've ever said to me, although I would have received that with giggles. You smell like a hippo.
I wish I would have said that.
Yeah, well, up your game a little bit, all right? But the thing with tit for tat is it really does fly in the face of marital unity, a marital charity, and generosity toward one another. So, like, you can tell...
Well, it's a keeping score, which 1 Corinthians 13 talks about, like, keeping score is not an actual way of love.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can, and I think when you feel like your spouse is attacking you because they're just angry with you and they're saying things that they don't really mean, but you know what they're trying to do, and that's what you want to respond to. Is their motive
I don't always know. That's my problem, though. I don't always know. I'm just like, because he's a really good arguer, and he's a really good communicator. You're a good arguer, too. I'm getting there.
No, you're very good. And I'm only realizing now how good you are, which is part of how good you are.
So good.
She's in my head. She's in my head. I'm getting wise to your wiles and your games. So anyway, so the biblical premise for this, again, take responsibility, is Romans 3:23. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We have to realize with humility that I'm a sinner. My wife is also a sinner. I'm not perfect. I'm owning my piece, but I'm also recognizing that she is not perfect in how she's dealing with it. And so that helps me now think in terms of how can I actually be an agent for sanctification in my wife's life? How is she being an agent of sanctification in my life?
Yeah, and it goes with owning it, because I can't. Sometimes we think as a spouse, oh, I see your sin, honey. Let me help you with that, right? And
I'm your helper.
I'm your helper, and that doesn't go over well either. So again, this posture of humility, this posture of recognizing that we've all sinned, and that if you're the first one to admit your sin, I think that is one of the biggest things you can do to de-escalate and to step into reconciliation.
Buried the lead again. Yeah, like
there it is.
Apologizing, saying you're sorry. If you just want a fight to end, like sometimes that's the quickest thing to do. Sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes you can just say, you know what, you're right. I'm a big jerk. I'm sorry. I give up my...
It sounds patronizing. It doesn't sound genuine.
Well, you would have to say it in a way that's genuine. That's up to you.
Clearly.
That's up to you to figure that out. Okay. And to end it with this, there's a kind of a caveat that if you find that you're in these ruts, these well-worn paths of escalating fights, escalating arguments, of kind of living with a low-grade tension that oftentimes escalates into the 7, 8, 9, 10 range, then it's time to get help. Yeah. It's time to get someone else to come in and help diagnose the heart condition, the heart issues, and even in some cases the emotional, mental, physiological issues at play.
There's nothing wrong with having someone assess where you're at and giving you tools to get out of those ruts. No one wants to stay there.
And the $1 million question is, who do you go to? And we would say by far, first and foremost, your pastor. Like that, your pastor is in the business of soul care. He has been commissioned by the Lord to care for your soul.
Yeah.
Which begs a bigger question. Are you part of a church body? Are you submitted to a church body of believers, people that can actually know you and speak into your life in a meaningful way, in a soul deep way?
Right, you can be vulnerable with them.
So if you don't have a pastor, then that's going to put you at a disadvantage, because this is a soul deep issue. Like, we're not talking about just psychological, emotional things. This has to do with your nature, the fallen nature. And so you need a pastor, you need a shepherd. You need a shepherd to help you. Now that pastor might then say, okay, let's get some psychological support here too.
Get some counselors.
Let's get some counselors. Yeah. Although I would argue that the pastor should be your primary source of counsel as a noun. So not as a verb, but for counsel. Anyway, we could go down that rabbit hole, but we won't. For now, our couples conversation challenge for you is identify what conversations and topics and events typically would precipitate an escalating argument. Yikes. Identify what are those hot button issues, and then begin to talk through how can you deal with those in a way that maybe won't escalate or won't escalate into the future. So,
and some of that might even just be, writing questions down in the off time that you're not so heated of. Gosh, we keep talking about how our finances are overdrawn and we're always stressed about it. We always fight about it. Maybe we can just start breaking it down and asking some questions of how can we be better about this? It feels like we're just at ends. And just kind of going through and naming the feelings and like writing things down often helps me process and clarify some things. So it's another way of dealing with it. So
let me pray for us.
Okay.
Lord, I thank you for the gift of communicating with one another in marriage. Thank you that we can share meaning through this gift of language, through the ability to speak and to hear. God, just what a gift it is. I pray that you'd help us as couples to wield that gift wisely, to love one another well through how we learn to de-escalate touchy conversations and difficult arguments. Lord, it's by your grace we proceed. May you give us the grace to succeed in this area. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, this episode of Fierce Marriage is...
In the can.
I almost forgot. If you liked this episode, if you've enjoyed it, you didn't remind me. You're supposed to remind me. This is going to escalate, I can tell. Leave a rating and a review in your podcast app if you would be so kind. If you're watching the video, do hit the like button, leave a comment, leave a question. We read those questions. We often respond, especially on YouTube, because it's a growing part of our ministry. And so we do hope to see your questions there. But that's it. So the episode's in the can. We'll see you again in about 7 days. So until next time,
Stay fierce.